Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to
Morning,
another
good
edition of
morning.
Morning.
Morning Money Conversations. Hope you're all well. How are we doing this morning?
Energetic.
Fantastic.
Did you guys want to introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them a little bit about yourself and your backgrounds and
Yeah,
why
go
we
ahead.
do these morning money conversations. You want to start, Stefan?
Yeah, sure. My name is Stephen McMillan. I've been a mortgage professional for over 8 years. Tack on the time I've been um, surrounded myself in my dad's office as well. So I have a pretty wealthy amount of experience in the mortgage and real estate industry. Um, the reason we do this is to simply educate and enable individuals who want to build their wealth and transfer it to their families ultimately. A little bit myself. I like, I'm a big enthusiast of music. Um, I like to, you know, try different cuisines with my fiance, Pam, and spend time with my family and friends.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Andrew?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Stewart. I'm a financial advisor with a focus on estate planning and insurance planning and protection for families and small business owners and professionals. Father of two. I have a lovely partner, so I'm the only guy in the family, so pray for me. But I enjoy spending time with the family, making sure that everybody in my circle, as far as my clients and my friends, are able to, hear from me at least once a week. I think relationships are important for what we do. Stefan and Ray, and we know that the connections that we make with our clients and learning about their families, they become extended families at times. So I just really enjoy people and making sure that the people in our community can have the type of financial advice and expertise that come from people like Steph Ray and myself.
All right, thanks, Andrew. I'm Raymond McMillan. I guess you realize that I'm Stefan's dad. Um, I have been in the business since 1994, started out as a financial advisor, um, then got into the mortgage brokering business in 1999. Stefan has subsequently inherited that business from me, or I actually, it was a transition. That was part of the master plan. And that's part of our competition today about the wealth blueprint, where you transfer your business to the next generation. Uh, yeah, but back to what I do. So I've been doing mortgages for about probably 25 plus years. I've helped a lot of clients, friends and family buy real estate, invest in real estate, and monetize real estate, not only in Canada, but in parts of the Caribbean um, and now in Florida. A few years ago, I transitioned into Florida. I spent a lot of time in Jacksonville, where I discovered this whole new market, new opportunity. Um, I've mentored many young professionals. I've partnered with many people in the past to deliver content to our audience. The focus is education. And today we want to talk to you about the wealth blueprint. And I guess for each of us, wealth is something totally different. And as we transition along our journey of life, wealth probably changes for many of us. But I want the audience to participate in what we're talking about today. Because I think it's an important conversation for everybody. You know, we look at what the pillars of wealth are, and I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see how we want to have our conversation flow today. Um, so anyway, gentlemen, enough about me. Let's start a conversation, right? So here you want to talk about the fundamentals of wealth building and what they include. So for many people, we start with saving, income protection, income earned or passive, business building, and estate planning. But we open the floor. We want a lot of questions from the audience. We want a lot of interaction from the audience. We want you to share with us what your idea of wealth is. But right, let's start the conversation. What does wealth mean to to you guys? Um, and what is your wealth building process?
Yeah,
And
what
I'll
it
go with
mean.
Stefan.
Go ahead, Stefan.
Okay. To me, wealth is it's the essence of time. As you probably all heard, time is money. So for me, the wealth building blueprint is getting time, and time can transfer into spending time with your family, your loved ones. And that's a time that's infinite. You can't take that back. And that's very important to me in the stage of my life, where, as I mentioned earlier, I have a fiance, so I'm having a wife soon and his children. So for me, the wealth building is to spend more time with children and my fiance, whether it be going to certain ballet shows or karate, and not be confined into working myself to the ground. And that to me is the ultimate truth of wealth. And and hopefully today you can get that from our conversations, from myself, my dad, and Andrew, where we have different outlooks and perspectives, and even yourself, the audience, you may have a different perspective than what we're going to share today, but ultimately we're just providing the fundamentals of wealth building and how we see the blueprint, to earn that wealth. So that's my thoughts on that.
And I think the word wealth has become a loaded word used in a lot of different sectors. And wealth can be different for as many different people as you can ask that question. But I think the most common one is going to be boiled down to money. Like, everybody thinks of having that money either in their account, either in assets, or in some way, shape, or form, something that they can either hold on to or use. Well, wealth to me is, like Stefan kind of alluded to, a choice. The ability to live your life on your terms and have as little or as minimal stresses that come your way financially. So if you're able to maintain a comfortable lifestyle, pay your bills, pay your debts, have money left over, able to spend that time with family, go on vacation. To me, those options available to you are as wealth. You don't need to have $2 million, $5 million, $10 million in the bank. Some people want those things, but they come with stress. So for me, it's about the options that your life has and how comfortable you're able to make your living.
But what happens if that 2 million or 5 million or $10 or 10 million doesn't come with stress? I mean, there are some people who want to have large amounts of money for whatever reason, perhaps just to be able to donate large sums of money to their favorite charity, or just the fact that that accumulation of money, makes them feel secure. I do understand that for everyone, you know, even incomes, what's a good income for one person may be a very meager income for another person. It's all about lifestyle, etc. But is it wrong to want to have a large amount of money?
Well, no, and here we go into the mindset thing of wealth. A lot of people have difficulty with their relationship with money and their mindset around that. And they think sometimes rich people are all evil. People with money either got it by scamming somebody or they didn't do anything to get it. Like, there's a lot of things that are portrayed in the world of what wealthy people act like and are and what they do with that money, and sometimes it's evil intention. So a lot of people shy away with wanting to be wealthy because of that mindset. But to me, money in this particular place is a multiplier. It's a multiplier of who you are and what you would do. And a lot of the times, I think people think individually and individualistic in regards to, it's just about them, what they want to do with the money, who the money is for, how it's going to make them feel, instead of kind of looking at it as a community base and seeing what you can do with wealth to make the world a better place and to help people. So to me, not having it or having it, that's individual, up to that person. But yeah, I think it begins a lot of it with the mindset of how you want to build that wealth and what it means to you.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
you. What's your thoughts on that, Steph?
Yeah, you guys make some great points. Going to piggybacking off Andrew said, I think it does have to do with individualism. Everyone has a different sense of money. Um, but also you shouldn't um, kind of not lower your standards, but you should reach to the ceilings where you should have, a sum of money, maybe 1 million or 5 million in today's world, where you can have a comfortable security in place. I think for us, with money is an energy, right? So it's exchange of energy. It's a product, service, is exchange. Once we remove the emotional side of money, then we look at it as a tool now. And and I come across many people that get very emotional about money. Even myself, when I was growing up, I spend all my money on candy and it's all gone, and I'm upset. But that's the cost of the candy, right? It's not free. But as we grow into adults now, we're making larger purchases with homes, cars, etc. And those emotional decisions can be very damaging and very long-term damage, and even to the next generation. So I think we all have sharing good points, but I think also removing the emotional side of looking at money can be very advantageous to wealth creation.
So, Steph, Ray, in referring back to the graphic here of the fundamentals and the blueprint, if somebody was to say to you, here's my situation, where should I start? What's the base that I could start at and thinking about and altering to change my wealth landscape?
I think the first thing is discipline. So yeah, these are the five fundamental steps you want to take, or the five things that will affect how you accumulate wealth. But the first thing is discipline, because everything you do in order to get better at it requires discipline and focus. Um, the next step is to creating wealth. I mean, the first to creating wealth is actually having a budget where you where you where you determine how you spend your money, and what you spend your money on. You know what I mean? Most people today just spend. They're not there's no budget, right?
Mhm.
And today I think it's even harder today. Like when I first came to Canada, there was no digital banking. So when you went to do groceries, you had to go to the supermarket, take out $100 cash, and go to Loblaws or No Frills or Food Basic or wherever you shop, um, to buy what you needed. So what happened there is that it allowed you to only buy what up to the limit of the cash in your pocket, wallet, or purse. Today, if you've got $300 in your account, $200 is to pay your cell phone bill and utilities, $100 for groceries. You go to the grocery store, most people will end up spending more than they plan to spend because there's all that impulsive buying. So what happens is something else gets left behind.
Or
So
they go on credit.
you're always behind the eight
Yeah.
ball. The next thing that people, I think, aren't doing today, and for me, is the pay yourself first rule. And that
Mm.
takes discipline. You know, um, before you pay anybody, most you get your paycheck and the first thing you do start paying bills. No, forget the bills. Let me take care of let me pay myself. I've put in 45 hours this week, 60 hours this week. What is my time? Let me pay myself first. So if that's 10% or 5% or 15%, it becomes a habit. The next
Mhm.
thing people have to stop doing, is, and I always tell Steph, and I use this term, let your money percolate in your account for a few days. Because most of us are living paycheck to paycheck or check to check, right? Your money hits your account and doesn't even spend 24 hours in your account, it's already gone out the window, right? So if you get a check or deposit on the first of the month, don't pay anybody till the fifth of the month. It gives you time to sit down, relax, get your head together, and then realize what is important to deal with right now what is not important. And once you develop those kind of habits, it's easier to start saving, um, looking at investing and other things. In my opinion, I mean, I can be way off, but that's what I think is very important in how you look at money.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like,
Yeah.
I could have, how I kind of broke it down to myself, and I just made some notes, is like the four financial levels of life. And typically what we see for the lowest level where some people are, is that they live beyond their means, like you said. So they're making 2,000, but they're spending 2,500.
Mhm.
Then the second level is they're just getting by. So you're basically able to make your money, make your money, pay your bills and your expenses, but that's all. There's nothing left over. Pretty much you're just living, you're not really thriving. And then the third is that person is able to earn, able to pay their bills and expenses, has a little bit of surplus and able to save, but not really know what to do with it. It just kind of sits there, and then they end up spending it on frivolous things or having it sit there in an account and being devalued by inflation. And then the fourth level is, this is where I think everybody should be, or try to get to, is making their money, able to pay their bills and their debts, have that surplus, but then taking that surplus and investing, whether it be into your stocks, whether it be into insurance, whether it be into real estate, but having that money become a multiplier for you instead of just sitting there. But one thing that I always want to make sure that I point out is that the investments should be safe. They should be liquid. And and what's the third thing? They should be safe, liquid. I'm missing one. It'll come to me. But those are the pretty much how I look at it, is what the four levels of kind of your financial stages of what people can go through.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I
Absolutely.
agree with you. What are your thoughts on that, Stefan?
I was going to ask a question to both of you. Based on the tiers that Andrew shared with us, how many of people you come across fall into those tiers?
Um, well, I mean, you look at society, it's the 80-20 rule, right? That's how society is usually divided. So 80% of people that do basically the same thing. Then you have the 20%, and in the 20%, you've got the 10% who are probably higher income earners, and whether it's in the US or Canada. Then you got the 5%, then you got the 3-2-1, right? The 1% are the mega wealthy, or the billionaires, and those guys who, on the whole stratosphere.
Mhm.
But the 10 and the 5% are the ones who usually come out ahead of the game. And it's not also how much money you make. It comes back to discipline and budget. I mean, I've seen clients who make $60,000 a year, household income 120, and they've got savings and investments up to $750,000 of no debt, own a home, own a car, etc. I've seen people make $300,000 a year household income, and they have no savings, like zero money in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're using their home as a bank machine,
Yeah.
right? And one of our ones I shared, people who bought homes 20 years ago, and they have no equity in their home, or they have limited equity. They keep on using the equity up to maintain their lifestyle. The one thing I observed with a lot of home buyers is there was no proper planning. And again, if I said this to the term budget,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that word should be emblazoned across the screen. You have to budget, right? Um, a lot of first-time
Why
home,
don't you think people budget?
because we live in a society of immediate gratification, right? It's immediate. And I said one of the challenges we have is that most of us haven't adjusted to the new world of digital banking.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just tap. You go outside, you don't have cash, and you can tap your card or your phone and get you walk past the hot dog stand. You didn't plan to buy a hot dog, but it's $10,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And you tap your phone.
I
So
think we
people
said
are
this.
continuous spending stuff that they didn't plan to spend. Like, so and Steph can tell you, I drive my car. I fill my tank once a week. right? So I drive my car to the gas tank, just go a quarter. And if I'm not going to fill my tank until I get to that level, I do it once a week, Thursdays only. I've been doing that for 30 years. I am not going to put gas in my car until I get to Thursday. So if my tank goes down to a quarter tank on Tuesday, then I am not driving anywhere unnecessarily until Thursday. It's discipline. It's a mindset. You get what I'm saying? Most people can't do that, right? So you're constantly doing things that you didn't plan to do with one of the world's scarcest resources, which is money, right?
And time.
Yeah,
I
because we trade in time for money.
Yeah, I like your example of the car because I do mine a little bit differently. I I put a dollar amount to it.
Yeah,
So I said it's $50
Mhm.
for the week or whatever it may be, and then that's my limit. So you can either, like you said, it all boils down to the discipline of what you can put on yourself and abide by it. And I find when I do budgets with clients is that we'll sit there, we'll itemize everything through, and that's either an estimate or an exact. And they may have the intentions of, staying within that budget, but it's still kind of a hard habit to live by, which I find most of my clients still have that with budgeting. They can have it on their spreadsheet, they can have it on a piece of paper, but what comes down to making that decision, like you said, at that moment in time, myself included, we fail a lot of times.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, is equivalent to, running a business. You have to have your gross, gross money you're making, the expenses, in a spreadsheet. And we work with a lot of individuals that are self-employed, and it's pretty shocking to see that they're kind of winging it. They don't really understand the ebbs and flows of their business or the expectations they have in their industry, especially in trucking. When fuel goes up, you have to consider that. Um, so it's interesting that how the business owners have that mindset of their business. And also, I'm pretty sure their personal life is even probably just as worse. They're not budgeting the groceries, the gas in their vehicles, the mortgage payments. They're not factoring those day-to-day expenses when something arises, where we're in this economy where, rates have gone up, inflation has gone up. But they haven't prepared themselves for that type of shift in the economy. And I'm not saying you should be an economist or anything like that. I think you should be very aware and inform yourself to what's going on, because preparation is key, and preparation can avoid certain mistakes in your life. And what we're sharing today is is kind of the blueprint. We keep saying the blueprint, um, of protecting, your assets, your income, for not yourself, but also your family as well. Because something I would share is that, um, you know, there are certain individuals that come into me and they're in mortgage arrears situation, and mortgage arrears haven't, it's not drastic yet. The percentage of mortgage arrears in Canada is very low, but it does occur and it does happen. And in the case of these clients, um, they did lose their job, and you can't expect, that's something you can't prepare for. That's unexpected. Um, but for them, you should have some type of savings, or something
An
that's an
emergency
emergency
fund.
fund. Yeah,
Yep.
there you go. Emergency fund to prepare for those situations, because that could happen. You can lose your job, especially if you're in, the person's in IT. So if you are following what's going on with the job losses in the IT industry, you can be prepared to lose your job. So it's just being aware of this quote unquote job security that you have, that you may potentially lose. Or someone who's self-employed, you have to be aware that there are slow months that you have to prepare for, and you have to brace for it. So again, it goes back to, again, the word budgeting that we're discussing today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said, Stefan, but a lot of times, there's much information out there today. How do you know how to filter it, right? And it comes back to the fact that I think more people today need to have an advisor who they can talk to become the filter for a lot of the information. Because I mean, when it comes to saving and investing, you got everything from a savings account and a fixed deposit to cryptocurrency,
Mhm.
right? And most people don't know what one is from the other, right? They can't define any of these things. So I think a lot of the fundamentals to well-being have to do with where do you get your information, who is giving it to you, and are they qualified to give it to you? The era of social media and online conversations has got everybody having a conversation. We're having a conversation right now. What equips us to have this conversation? Yeah, I've been for 25 years, you for 8 years, Andrew for 15, 16 years. But we've seen a lot of different experiences in front of us. But we have to vet the information, which is I think is very important, and vet the people who give us the information. Um, and what are their lived experiences, because there's also a lot of cultural differences when it comes to money, right? There's a cultural relationship with money, even within certain communities. The way East Indians from India and parts of the Caribbean deal with money, and the way Americans deal with money and Europeans deal with money is very, very different, right? The idea of wealth is not the same thing, how they do it. And then what's also very important, when you mentioned the whole job loss thing, is the income asset protection. So many people focus on creating money, but what they don't do, or creating wealth, sorry, what they aren't doing is protecting what they're creating, right? You mentioned job loss. A lot of mortgage products have insurance against illness, and I want to say job loss also. If you lose your job, they pay your mortgage for
Yeah,
6 months. Even credit card, I think, offer that benefit.
yeah, they
But
do.
most
Yeah.
people don't have those features. So you lose your job. If you're in a profession and you qualify, you probably find another job in 3 to 6 months. But in those 3 to 6 months, if you don't have the necessary income asset protection in place, you can find yourself so far behind that you're never going to get out of that hole unless your income increases significantly going forward. So I think there's much to this conversation. I don't think the 45 minutes that we've given it is going to do it justice. This needs a part 1, 2, 3, and 4 probably. But I'll let Andrew share what his perspective is on what we've been talking about so far.
Yeah, so coming down to the income and asset protection, which is kind of my whole world, is I'm not pretty much telling you if you want to transfer a risk to an insurance company, there's probably a product or a company that's able to take on that risk for you. The issue is that do people find value in paying that premium to transfer that risk, whether it be job loss, whether it be death, whether it be sickness, whether it be an injury. There's usually a product that could either make you whole or hold you afloat until that time frame has passed. So in regards to the blueprint, we've covered budgeting. I think earning obviously is a non-negotiable. Going into that income and asset protection is a non-negotiable to me, because I never understood where if I'm going through a budget with somebody and they lose their job, the first thing to go is either their life insurance, either their disability insurance, or whatever insurance that they have in place. But they'll do whatever they can to keep that car insurance. Why is the car insurance the one that cannot go? Because they find value in using that car to go to wherever they need to go. So it always, to me, boils down to how much and how sticky that value is for that particular individual in regards to that protection of that asset. We always say your biggest asset is your ability to earn, but that's the least protected out of all of them, right? So that's where I go with that. And then I just want to go to that third bullet point, the income. How are we earning that income? Salary? Is it self-employment? Is it passive? Is it through profit of a business? I think that's the next level that when it comes to wealth building, people need to focus on after you get through the budgeting and making sure that you're living within your means and you have the protection in place that's important to you. But what are the advantages of earning an income a certain way over another way and having multiple streams of income? That to me, I think is where you really start to hit a stride of feeling comfortable in your financial position when you have those multiple streams of income and earning it in different tax efficient ways. What's your thoughts, Ray?
Yeah, that's very important to me. Like I was never one who was fond of part-time jobs because I saw the part-time job as a tax liability, right? If you've got a job where you're making $80,000 a year, you're in a pretty high tax bracket, whether you're in the US or Canada. You take a part-time job now where you've given up your leisure time to earn extra money, 5 or 10 hours a week. You're pushing yourself into a higher marginal tax rate most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And now nurses are a little different. Healthcare workers are a bit different because they work on a different schedule. So some of them only work 25 hours and they work 25 hours here. But if you have a full-time job where you're working 40 hours a week, and then you find yourself having to work an extra part-time job, I find most of the time that the tax implications of that second job doesn't warrant the time you're giving up, right? So what's the solution? In my opinion, the solution is to try and find something that generates income under either a company or through some sort of investment vehicle. To become a member of an investment club, you know, rent part of your home if possible, because now you can now, if you, when you sit with your accountant, you can now, work around how to make some of that income tax deductible. Because starting a small consulting business based on your profession. So if you work in IT and you have a job, then work as an independent IT consultant. You set up your own company. There's many things you can do to make your income tax efficient. But yes, I mean, as we look at us who live in these larger cities, the cost of living in them is extremely high. You live in, Toronto, New York, Miami, these large cities. Your housing is expensive, your food is expensive. So for many people, you've got to look at an additional source of income. It's probably easier for two income earning households to survive. The challenge is in some communities, many of the households are only single income households. So, with the two income household now, you got all these tax credits, which is something people already take advantage of and they don't really understand. And it goes back to my earlier comment. You've got to sit with the professionals and get the necessary advice, right? You've got to sit down with somebody. So your whole team has to be working in sync. Your insurance advisor, your investment advisor, your mortgage advisor, and your accountant. So that when you sit down with these individuals, along with you show them your budget and what your household income is and where you plan to go, you got a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year plan. Everything is working together as a well-oiled machine. But I think, figuring out how to make the most of the income and having the discipline, right, to keep to that budget, stay focused, is what is going to get us today to the next level.
What was yours, Stefan?
Yeah, since we're talking about passive income, I have to shoot in the reverse mortgage because, if you've been following our conversations, that's kind of the catalyst of what I've been discussing. And I work largely with the aging population, and the aging population, when you look closely to it, their income has, they're in a fixed income. There might be pensioners, retired. They don't have a lot of savings, I find, as well, limited savings. I actually saw a video recently. This was in the US, this elderly white couple. One guy, the husband is in his late 70s. The wife is probably late 60s, but he had to go, he's still working. He's been working for over like 50 years and he has to work to pay his bills. And he grew up in a farm, so he grew up very rural, and he didn't grow up in the city. And he didn't know about a retirement plan. So it goes beyond just culture and your ethnic background. You find a lot of people have no idea where to start. So going back to the reverse mortgage, it utilizes your equity in your property to take out cash free money, and you can use it as, supplement income, passive income, to support yourself. You can use it to support yourself, remodel your home to make it more senior friendly. You can use it to invest. As you know, we mentioned investment vehicles in this conversation. It's not too late to invest. You should build your future, because that investment can be, transferred to the next generation if you want to. So that's another method, again, to create passive income through real estate. Many of us still own homes, and they have a very small mortgage balance, and that they have all this built up equity, yet they're house rich and cash poor. So that could be a tool to utilize passive income, where you don't have to go back to work if you don't want to. I know some seniors like working because they like being in social environments, and that boosts their health and wellness. But if it's not necessary for you to make a living, then it could be a tool for you to consider, a home equity release, to live comfortably in your home and not stress about paying your next bill or something occurs. And the recent floodings happened in the GTA. Actually had 2 incidents where clients not resulted to the flooding, but they had flooding in their basement, flooding in the roof, and they have no money to pay for it. They had to get mortgage financing to do it. And these people, and one of them is fairly elderly too. So you have to be prepared for unexpected situations. And that goes back to, the second point, the asset protection and the savings as well, to weather any type of storm that comes at you.
Great points. Great points.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging for a lot of folks today. I mean, the cost of living has increased significantly in the last 10 years. You know, we've seen interest rates increase, and that's the other thing that has caught a lot of
Sorry, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to quickly open it up to the people in the group and the participants to see if they have any questions or anything that they wanted to add in regards to anything that either of us have mentioned, or have a question themselves.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, if you have a question, please put in the chat. We had a couple of comments in the chat, just basically reiterating what we've been talking about. Thanks, Dr. White, for your contribution. We do appreciate the comments. But if you've got a question for us, you can either put it in the chat, or you can ask the question. You have to turn your camera on. Just pop your hand up and just ask the question, and let us hear you. We thank you for taking the time this morning for spending with us. I know you've been doing a million other things. We're just about 5 minutes from 11 o'clock. So we don't have much time. We don't want to, take advantage of your 45 minutes. There's a question here in the chat here from one of our listeners. And the question is, how important is risk tolerance when it comes to planning? That's an interesting question. I think risk tolerance changes as your level of understanding changes. I know that might be the unpopular opinion. I don't know what the opinion of my 2 colleagues is. But what's your opinion of that, guys? Risk tolerance.
We had that conversation, I think, just earlier in regards to how comfortable are you with risk? And I think it's a huge component to how people go into and what they're thinking about of what they're planning for. You can plan as small or as medium or as large as you want, but it's always going to be in line with what kind of risk you can tolerate. For me, I'm comfortable with taking on certain risks in my investments because, like you said, level of understanding is greater in there. But my planning and my risk tolerance for, say, investment properties are very, very low because my understanding and even though I know about it and understand the benefits, it's still a low risk tolerance for me. So I think for me, or for if I was advising somebody, is that pick somewhere you're either going to educate yourself to increase that knowledge, or pick something that you're comfortable with and become very, very proficient in it in regards to how you want to plan and execute those things.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with both what you guys were saying. And I totally agree with Andrew. I think you have to pick one of the kind of the types of ways you want to build your wealth. And I find if you're doing too many different things, if you're into real estate, stocks, crypto, you're kind of spreading yourself thin, and you're not really mastering the craft in one asset. And I think you should take the time to learn inside out how to build that wealth, either it's in investment properties, or stocks. Take the time to educate yourself. Even find a mentor. Those are great. They might share some time and some insights, some candid insights to avoid those mistakes they made, and they can share that with you so you don't bump your head in the middle of the way. And that way you develop your own risk tolerance, because I think you have to, risk tolerance only happens when something occurs, I find, with certain individuals. So you might have put 10,000 in a stock and it dropped down to like 3,000. Then that's when you're like, oh, you start to panic, you start to react. But if you took the time to understand that there's volatility in stocks, then you would have been aware that potentially the money may go up or down. So I think what my dad and what Andrew was saying is that you have to take the time to self-educate yourself. And more importantly, I think find someone who's a master in that field as well. I think some of us shy away from that, but it gets big dividends when you take time and sit down. And most of the time it's free. It doesn't cost anything. You might just have to bring coffee or tea or something to eat, but you're gonna learn a lot from that interaction from that person, where you develop your own risk tolerance in time, and where you might have been in a scale on the 2, but after that conversation, you're now a 7 and 8.
Yeah, that's a lot of valid points. My mom always told me when I was a child growing up that a wise man learns from the mistakes of others, while a fool learns from his own. That comes back to mentorship. So if you find yourself a mentor, a real transparent, honest mentor, they will share with you their successes, but more importantly, their failures and their shortcomings. So it allows you not to make the same mistake. It allows you to better analyze the risk, because they've already done it. And whether it's investing in, real estate properties, or whether it's investing in the stock market or crypto, if you have a mentor who's, not necessarily who's older than you, but more experienced in the field that you are interested in being involved in, then I think it gives you more clarity into what you can and cannot do. But what is interesting is that many people today are risk averse when it comes to investing in wealth creating assets, but they aren't risk averse when it comes to with accumulating tremendous credit card debt. Like, I am more risk averse to the credit card debt than to the investing part of it. I mean, I remember that, like, I don't have large credit cards. They scare me because it's not my money. I don't want a $25,000 credit card. And I've called credit card companies and asked them very politely to reduce my credit limit back to where it was. I don't need to have a credit card that has more than $5,000 in the credit, right? Because that to me puts me in a position where instead of me going out and trying to generate earned or passive income, I am now comfortable dealing with a short-term crisis using somebody else's money. Now, if you're using the credit card to leverage your business, that's a different conversation. It's risky, but it's a different conversation. But I find it challenging that people are scared of, investing in the stock market or investing in real estate or investing in themselves, but they're not afraid in acquiring tremendous amounts. I mean, the average person is carrying probably $30,000 or more in credit card debt in North America, in the large cities. Black people, you know, more than three-quarters of them are walking with a large amount of credit card debt, right? But nobody is investing in tangible things that can pay dividends in the future. So I think it's a matter of rewiring our brain, how we function. You know, you've got, you know, you've got the expensive clothing, but you aren't invested in the companies manufacturing this clothing. And these companies are all making tremendous inroads and making great. Every year their incomes are going up. I was listening to every now and then these videos pop up on your timeline. And one famous rapper, actually I sent it to you, Stefan. One famous rapper was saying that once your sneaker has a crease, you can't wear it anymore. No, I never heard such dumb stuff in my life, right? These folks have a huge audience, and you've got all these teenagers following you. So your Air Jordan's got a crease. So now it's no your sneakers have to be creaseless to define you, right? So we've got to be very careful what we consume, particularly our younger generation. And we got to be a lot more understanding of what risk really is and what risk is not. And while for many investing in the stock market or doing puts and calls might be risky, the real risk is the debt that you're carrying. Those credit cards that come to you in the mail every 3 days, $5,000, $10,000. That's your real challenge, not investing in real estate in the stock market.
I wanted to maybe add, it could be a question to both of you. You believe that the word debt, the concept of debt, is more of a North American social construct? Because, when my dad shares stories of Guyana, people have debt, but not the magnitude where it is in North America. And not even the magnitude in terms of dollar figure, more the understanding of it. I feel like my dad was sharing earlier, that I think for some of us, we get a little too comfortable with the credit card or line of credit debt, where it's a cushion. But like if you look at parts of the Caribbean, that's not very the mindset. Like they want to get rid of debt. The debt is a bad thing. Like they don't want to be in debt. But when I look at individuals' liabilities, it's a very, laissez-faire kind of attitude behind it. And for me, when they give me a response of how they develop that position, it's like, oh yeah, I just, went here back home a couple months and I racked it up, helping individuals. And okay, so we'll get to helping individuals, and you could help someone, but if it puts you in a hole, I don't think you should be helping anybody. That could be any your mom, your dad, your family member. And when that client told me that, I found that very interesting, because this person was racked up a lot of debt for helping individuals, their family, and it's case by case, of course. If the person's in a very tragic situation, then by all means help them. But if it puts you in a position where you're racking up this debt, where you have to, consider strongly saying no, not this time, because it could put you in a very debt cycle, where that cycle is kind of, it could be extensively long, and it increases very rapidly. As you know, the cost of living here in Canada, US, it could be quite high for certain individuals. So I think you have to have a strong sense of, you do want to help individuals, because our cultures, what we're talking about, we do help people back home, right? And we have responsibilities. But if it's putting you in a predicament where you're every so often you have all these debt, then you might have to start considering what's best for you.
Well, I got a short answer for that. I mean, you
There's
can't help
another
anybody.
question. There's another question there, right? You want to address the question
Oh.
first?
Yeah. There's a question in the chat here from one of our listeners. Do I think the mindset of working 2 to 3 jobs that Caribbean immigrants bring to North America is a helpful or hindrance? I think we touched on this earlier, where I shared my opinion on that. Where, I mean, a lot of times a job is exchanging time for money. And all income in North America is taxed. So by giving up your leisure time, or a time where you can develop in yourself, and working multiple jobs, I don't see it as a benefit to significant growth. Now, if you do it in the short term for a specific reason, like you're a student, you want to finish your MBA, and you want to go to university without a student loan, then that makes sense. If you got a goal where you need to get X number of dollars to get to a destination, you need to save $15,000 to buy your podcast equipment for your studio, that makes sense. But where you were working 2 and 3 jobs to maintain basic living, I don't see that as a sensible way to trade time for money. I see it better investing your time in increasing your knowledge base and your skill set, and increasing your income. I think it was a very poor use of time. I said I've never had a part-time job in North America. I did it once for probably, I think, 3 nights. I had a factory job way back in the 90s. It was the worst experience I've ever had in my life. And I shifted my focus into trying to get myself accredited in certain disciplines that I can now get into rooms and spaces that I can actually earn more money. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what your opinion of that is, guys, but that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that last point that you said of increasing your skills. For the most part, when I see people working 2 to 3 jobs, it's because either they're in an industry where it's hard to level up to earn money. If you're working in retail, you can go as high as a manager or sales manager, and that's about it. But if you're in a field or an industry that you can level up your skills to earn more income in that same field and become proficient at it, I'll use myself as an example. I started off as just, your general advisor. But then when you started getting accreditations and getting letters behind your name, then you're able to speak to different individuals, command more income. So I think a better use of the time is leveling up in that industry or field that you're in. But if you can't, and you're going to have to find another second job or third job, then try to make it as passive or as on your time or energy, and not using as much energy as you can, as opposed to driving to another location or third location, either cleaning something else or another retail job. Those ones are just taxing, and it becomes a hindrance at that point, because then you become a slave to that income and that energy output.
Yeah, and there's a cost to doing it. I mean, as you said, if you work in a full-time job from 9 to 5, then you're going to leave that full-time job. You have to drive halfway across the city. If you're in Toronto, it's a traffic nightmare. It's costing you gas, maintenance in your car, wear and tear. To go to work somewhere for 3 hours or 4 hours, most likely it's going to be some other job in the service industry, probably a restaurant or a retail environment. There's no time left for you to actually, sit down and plan your next move. You're tired all the time, right? You're working probably 6 or 7 days a week. Like my first job was retail in Canada, right? And I watched I had a regular job as a store clerk with a pretty large office supply company. And the audience, we said 11 o'clock, we're going to stop. It's 10 minutes past 11. We're going to ask you for 5 more minutes of your time because I think we've had a very good conversation. We probably shortchanged ourselves by listen 45 minutes. So we're going to go to 11:15 if that's okay with you guys. But yes, back to what I was saying. My first job in Canada was retail. And I quickly realized after a few months that there was no money in this. I became a store manager very, very quickly. The only benefit I had was I had a 10 or 15% discount on everything the store sold. Now, how many pens and paper do I need that's going to make my life any different? You know what I mean? So this discount to me was useless. I didn't need anything from the store, right? So I started to go to a lot of evening courses at Humboldt College. So I never worked a second job. I never wanted to work late. I didn't want to work overtime, none of those things. As soon as my time was up, I was out the door. I went home to my family. You know what I mean? Because that was more important to me than I don't want to say it was a dead-end job. It actually served the purpose at the time I did it. And that's the other thing that we have to understand today, particularly for younger people. You have to map your future. So yes, you have all these financial elements that we mentioned before, the first 5 elements. We didn't get to all of them. But I think what is more important is mapping your future. Because that's going to determine how you create wealth. You know, you come to university or college, you have your first job as a bank, insurance company, hospital, tech company. But then where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years? And you have a very, very concrete plan to get yourself there. So while we have to budget for resources, you also have to budget for a life because the two things go hand in hand. And I don't think many people are doing that. So we just sort of going from one day to the next with no game plan. And then wherever we end up, you know. And you see it when you get to 55 and 60, right? You got 2 people who have earned the same income. One has retired at 60, and if you got a home back in the Caribbean, and one at 65 is still working because they didn't have a game plan. They had no game plan for it, right? And they both had the same opportunity, right? You know, I mean, I know life happens to a lot of folks. So life happens sometimes. It's also it happens to change your trajectory in life. But I mean, I think we live in a society and I live in a part of the world where there's tremendous opportunity if you understand the landscape and take risks that you analyze the risks, do some research, and speak to people, speak to the advisors. That's very, very important.
Well, that's the end of our time. You know, I just want to take this moment to thank everybody for staying longer than our intended time and giving us those 2 great questions. We hope to see you again next month, every second Wednesday. We're here to having a conversation about money and real life conversations. We haven't determined what our next topic will be, but we'll be definitely marketing that and will be coming out shortly. But I just want to say thank you. This has been a great call.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Have yourself a fantastic day. We got one final comment. Let's see who it is. It's one of our listeners says, thanks for sharing. Thank you very much for taking the time and spending with us. Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yourself a fantastic day and continued success. Okay, I've moved all of our participants back into the waiting room. Are you muted?
Yep, perfect. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I have Pam here. She wants to give feedback. I know she's been trying to give feedback, so I'll let her kind of share what she has.
Oh, Pam's in the office?
She's in the room.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good.
And
Nice to meet you,
I know.
Andrew, for the first time.
First time finally seeing you. I've
Yes.
heard so much about you.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully good things.
All good things.
That's great. I'm a huge fan of everyone.
you have to be.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Mr. McMillan. Hope you're doing
How you
well there
doing?
too. Good, good. Thanks. So I just
Doing
want to
well. I'm excited to
thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you. So I just kind of wanted to hop on here just to kind of give feedback from like the audience perspective. First thing I did want to confirm, is it every second Wednesday or every second Wednesday of the month?
Well, technically it's the same thing.
I don't, let me maybe like clarify that on,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
every second Wednesday of the month.
oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
because every second Wednesday, because like the next Wednesday or the second Wednesday would
Oh.
then be August 28th. So
Right.
that's a little bit confusing. So maybe
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah,
I get
so
it.
maybe
Yeah.
the Zoom meeting wallpaper can be changed to do that as well.
Okay.
And so right now I noticed that it's just like friends and family that are hopping on the call. So I really wanna, like, I see the potential and I really want you guys to grow the audience, and you know, like I feel like you guys can offer so much more, and every time I hop on a call I get excited because it does get better and better. Like I remember going into like the first one, everyone's a little, you know, unsure and shaky, you know, everyone's like, you know, everyone knows their place. So I'm really happy about that. But I think we should shift to like the focus of attracting the audience now,
Mhm.
maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that there's a trend like going on social media, that there's like podcasts in the States that talk about life, you know, of like Black men, like what they go through in like the business industry and things like that. But I see that there's not really a lot of people having that in Canada as well. So maybe instead of these, maybe you guys can do the Tuesday conversations instead. And you know, circulate that, and that I think that will attract a lot of people, because I feel like there's not really a lot of you know, it's demand and supply, right? There's, I see people watching that content for like the United States, but we don't have, you know, Black businessmen in Canada that
Yeah.
really has to say.
Pause
Yeah.
for one second, dear Pat. So you were saying that our Tuesday conversation.
Yes.
How do you know that? Is Steph sharing this stuff with you?
Oh, 100%. Andrew knows this. Anything that you know, like it's, you share it with your wife. You have to.
Yeah, pillow talk,
the
man.
rule.
Pillow talk is a real thing.
Yeah.
So the
So,
Tuesday.
but that's interesting because like it is interesting because we have the same opinion of what you just shared. I think the Wednesday conversation, I think for all of us, we're still a bit tense
Yeah.
because we know there's this audience. So we very, we want to make sure we're giving the right advice and all that kind of stuff. I mean, but on Tuesday, it's just the three of us having a free-flowing conversation. I don't have my tie on, I mean, I'm
Yes.
outside on the pool deck sometimes. I may have
Yeah.
a glass of orange juice. And that conversation is unscripted. It goes all over the place. We talk about, I mean, Steph and I share about his position in my life as my son, how I have grown as a father. And then, I try to mentor both of them and share my journey. So I see what you're saying.
So
So
Pam,
do we record that conversation and share that conversation?
Yes. And
We have to
I
edit.
see that like it's 10:15, right? Like it always starts at 10:15. And I find that people have, you know, work. It's on a Wednesday. That's why sometimes like I have to like hide from my director, you know, to kind of hop on the call. So I think that recording it and just circulating on social media and having like, you know, those real bites, like let's say like Mr. Ray says something very outrageous, and that kind of like gets the audience like, okay, like tuned in, like let me see like what this conversation is about, right? Like I know I'm not supposed to share this, hope you don't get mad, but I know you guys are talking about like the gay community or the LGBTQ plus community. I know that that's, you know, just use every bit of attention that you guys can get, because I would love for you guys to have like, you know, like 300 audience, like, you know, members, right, tuning into the show. And I feel like that's one thing that social media is really good at. It makes, you know, people go viral. And I see that you guys have so much to share, so much knowledge and so much really good information that a lot of people are not really talking about. So yeah, like it's just kind of, I think we need to focus, or you know, the shift on attracting the audience instead of informing them as of now, because they
Mm.
always know, you can always like put your information out once they know what you guys are about. I feel like the audience is like, oh, okay, like I know Andrew's like so knowledgeable, let me go to him for advice, right? I know where he is, like I know, like,
Shift to attraction. I like that.
yes.
like that,
And
actually.
one more thing, I know, like as you guys are growing your audience, maybe like, I hope I'm not nitpicking, and I hope I'm not
No,
you're
no,
good.
no, no,
No,
no,
you're
no,
good.
We
no,
need
need
no,
this.
this.
We
be
need
very honest and
we
transparent.
need brutal feedback. We're
Okay,
big boys, we can
maybe,
take it.
okay, amazing. So maybe before every call, you guys can assign like one person to kind of address a question, instead of like everyone kind of like, oh, saying like, oh, there's a question, there's a question, there's a question.
Okay.
Like
Mm.
3 people in one, like kind of addressing the same thing. So like maybe take turns.
Mm.
So before every call, it'd be like, hey, you know, like Ray or Mr. McMillan or Stefan or Andrew, like pick one person to like kind of
Okay.
moderate the chat, right? But yeah, I think that's about it. When anything else comes in mind, then I'll definitely let you guys know and inform you. But keep doing it. I know it's kind of a little bit frustrating to see the numbers not really go up that much, but the information is getting significantly better and better and better, and that's what matters, right? It's just shifting to attract the audience instead of like informing. And
Yeah, this audience, there were a couple of people who were never on before.
oh,
Yeah.
nice.
There were 3 new people. Yeah, but I mean, all command tend to know. They tend to know us. They are. There's nobody who doesn't know us in the audience,
Yeah.
right? So everybody is somebody's. Yeah, you're right. It's either a family member, a friend, or a client who comes on to the conversation. Do you think the 45 minutes is enough time?
I was just gonna say that too. I think it's better to extend the time rather than, you know, like promise that is within a certain period and then extend it. But yeah, I feel like 1 hour is great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, like, I tend to look at the clock just to make sure I don't want to like
Yeah.
impose anybody's time. But then as we
Yes.
start to discuss stuff, because we didn't get through all 5 of the points. We only got to the fourth one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We didn't get to business building. We had to get to the first
Third
3.
one. Yeah.
Mhm.
Third
We
one.
didn't even get to
Right? So,
estate planning.
No.
no, we didn't
Yeah.
get estate planning or thing. So
Yeah.
I think we want to have a second part of the conversation next month. Just to continue the conversation, because we kind of left it hanging. Because the estate plan, and then there's a graphic I had about how much money is being transferred over
Yeah,
the
I saw you
next.
looking for
Oh, yeah, I
something.
saw that.
Is that what you were looking
Yeah,
for?
yeah.
Mm.
But that'd be a whole long conversation, right? And that would be a very engaging conversation. But then I don't think we had enough time to do it. So let's get a recap of what you're saying, Pam. You want us to share
The
pieces of the
Tuesday.
Tuesday conversation
Yes.
when we advertise the Wednesday conversation.
And also, because I feel like the Tuesday conversations are a lot more frequent, and I think social media kind of they
Loses
prefer
touch.
people.
Yeah.
No, they prefer people who post regularly. So
Regularly.
instead of doing like posting every month for the Wednesday conversations, you can post every week, right? And
That
that
makes
way the
sense.
algorithm picks up. And then I think you can also record the Wednesday conversations and be like, if you guys, you know, need more information about like wealth building, then you can tune into, you know, you can link the podcast or link the Zoom link or the Zoom meeting.
You're still recording, Andrew.
Yeah, I know.
It's not, you know, to take notes for later on.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not gonna remember all of this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I appreciate it. Like I have fun. I enjoy it
Yeah.
Yes.
thoroughly. Sometimes I gotta censor what I'm about to say because I don't know, and I don't think I should actually do that. I think I should just be my authentic self. Because I have a lot of very strong opinions on certain things, like I think the single family household is one of the biggest plagues on wealth creation in modern society. I think, the way a lot of women see family and marriage today also is one of the things, particularly Black women. I think Black women have been sold this whole thing of being independent and getting 8, 9 degrees and they're going to conquer the world. It's a bunch of nonsense. They're not going to do it. You know,
Do you think
I
that there's
think,
a reason for that though? Like what if, like, because of generational trauma, the
no, it's not
men,
generation. It's not generational trauma. It's a lot of so one of the biggest contributors to that whole conversation is Oprah Winfrey.
Mm.
Where she became this person who for 30 years was in the forefront of Black women, and she became very successful, and she was never married. Now, that's also a lie. Even though she was never married, she's had the same man next to her for the
Yeah.
last 40 years supporting her, right? And he's a very strong man, right? So a lot of Black women saw her, but they never really stopped to really dissect her personal dynamic, right? So that's one that happened. Um, and then a lot of women have been told that getting educated is the key to increasing your wealth and your life, which is not necessarily true. I will make a very controversial statement. The, the woman's position in life is taking care of her family and her children, regardless of how qualified she is. So if you look at a lot of successful white families, a lot of white women who are married to very powerful men take 10, 12, 14 years off of their life to raise their children, take care of their family. Then they come back into the workforce in their late 30s or early 40s. And then the family scales up because they're coming in at a point where their husband is already doing pretty well. Because if your home is taken care of properly, it allows you as a man to focus singularly on what you're trying to build, right? I'm not discounting that women, I'm not saying women should not go to university and get qualified. That's not what I'm saying by any imagination, right? But I'm saying if you can't have both parents chasing the same goal because something will suffer. And usually, if you look at Black and Hispanic families, they have the highest level of delinquency when it comes to their children. Highest level. Now, there's no stats in Canada, but there's a lot of stats here in America. And there's so many successful women here in America, extremely successful Black women, but you've got to have that balance.
I would love to hear Andrew's opinion, but before that, I kind of want to share that there's nothing that I would love more than to like bake and to take care of, stay home and to take care of the kids, and just, like live like a very soft life. But that's not the economy that we're living in right now. And
No,
I feel like it needs to be a two-person, like how, yeah, income household right now. But for sure, I feel like I agree with you in the sense that there are a lot of um, what is the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I haven't had caffeine today. My matcha. There's a lot of good sides about having like the women stay home because I know that, like children are raised by villages, right? And I grew up in the Philippines. I was born there. And I know I grew up with my grandmother. So there's like a lot of really good things about having like women stay home. But at the same time, it's not the same economy as it was back in the days. And I feel like,
yeah,
like we should also be there to support um I guess our spouse or our partners if their income doesn't allow, for me to
yeah,
stay home, right?
and I agree with that. But there are other communities that are doing it, and those communities are moving ahead much faster than the ones who
Mm,
aren't doing it. You know what I mean? So I mean, I know that the people we've entrusted to take care of our economy have done a very poor job of it. I mean, the Canadian government has messed up the entire economy. But it's not the same thing in America, right? And the difference between the US and Canada, in Canada, you have basically three cities where you can actually make money. The rest of
Mhm.
mhm.
Canada, you can't. I mean, as a Black person or as an immigrant person, it's hard to move to Sault Ste. Marie and become a pillar in that community. It's an all-white community, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Uh, So that's the challenge, and I appreciate and I understand that. But I think that, I mean, it has has a huge impact on the end result, right? And I mean, we can look at all those stats that show, I mean, if you got both parents working and you got two 12-year-old kids, who's going to tell them when to come home from school? You don't know where they are.
Yeah.
If there's no grandparent in the house, who's going to tell them where to come? I mean, Andrew told me, despite me the other day, like Andrew told me he grew up pretty simple, pretty modestly. And then the next word he told me that his mother never worked. No, he didn't grow up modestly. If your mother doesn't work, that's a middle class background. No, your father not be making $600,000 a year, but he made enough money that allowed his wife to stay with you and your sibling. That is something that's unheard of in North America among Black families.
Oh yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
You live with your father. Okay, he had an amazing budgeting skills, right? You should bring your father on the conversation, right?
He,
You
he
say,
support,
okay,
he ran
my
he
X
ran
number of
church,
dollars per
household.
year, yeah, right. So I think a lot has to do with the discipline. There's much of this conversation, right? I mean, you know,
Well, in my opinion, let me just try to unpack this a little bit. I think
It's a lot.
First let's start
I've
with
got very strong opinions. You guys know about
let's just start with what I started on was the mindset of the women. Okay.
Yeah.
Me and my partner, we've had many conversations in regards to how women feel, of how they feel like they need to pick up the slack. They need to be the father, the mother, and the friend to the children because the men aren't carrying their weight anymore or as much. Now, we're talking about the situation where a man wants to be a provider, is able to be a provider, and has the mentality to want to do the best by his family. Okay. So that in itself is probably like the 20%, right? To find a man that's able to do all three. And then one is coupling of the right partner for you and your situation. Like for me and Sarah, it's worked perfectly because she has the full-time job and wants to pursue her career in academia with UFT, but I'm the self-employed, which gives me the flexibility of schedule to be, like you said, in the end, be home to make sure that the kids are home and parenting and whatnot. And then we switch between our schedules of who's going to be taking them to sports. And so there's so much to unpack in the sense to make it successful in that type of environment where women feel that they're comfortable and they're able to be vulnerable and they're able to stay home and take care of the children in that way. But economically, unless the man is able to support the child and the family in that way, it's kind of hard to do, like Pam was saying. So there's a lot of different levels that go into making a successful family situation and partnership and economic success in this day and age. It's much harder. Like my father was able to do it because expenses were so much lower. Like he spent $125,000 on the house. He could run the family on a $50,000-$60,000 income. There's no way you're going to be able to do that this day and age on a $50,000-$60,000 income. So kudos to my father, but it was a different environment which he was allowed to do that. And on top of that, they're both pastors. So my mom's focus was now focusing on the church. Right?
Yeah.
So again, divvy up of responsibilities. It boils down to so much who your partner is and how well you guys can divvy up the responsibilities to run the household as like a business, because it's basically a business that you're running. And make sure that if that person can't pull the weight, or you don't trust them, or infidelity, your arguments and all that type of stuff, all those little divots in the road along the way can fracture all of that. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Well, I agree with what you said, 100%. And I mean, like choosing the right partner today is a crapshoot for a lot of people, both men and women.
100%.
Many people are sending their representative to their first few dates, and then the real person comes out. We live in a society here where we don't really know too much of the person's back. Anybody knows that. You're meeting this total stranger, and you're entrusting your entire future to this person. You invest 3 years of your life, and then it started to come out eventually. I mean, coming from the Caribbean, where we have smaller communities, or even or in the same thing in the Philippines, where your family tends to live in you tend to say your small circle, either through your church, school, or sports you play. You tend to be somebody who you would know, and that has a lot to do with it. Men and women are investing time with people that should not be given 30 seconds of their time, and that's one of the biggest challenges. Now, I don't know if dating apps changes that. I mean, I've never used a dating app. But I mean, I was not like a 25-year-old today in Toronto or New York or any big city. Like, I don't know, how do you find somebody, right, that you want to spend the rest of your life with, who's going to be a great parent to your children, who shares the same value, the same belief system, the same love for their family? And how do you find that person today? I mean, everybody's pretending to be something else, you know? So it's very difficult. And I understand that. But, I still think that, with the right approach and the right game plan, that yes, life is more expensive today than it was 30 years ago or 40 years ago. But I think with the right planning, we can still do some of the things that our parents did.
One thing's for sure, Stefan and Andrew have real ones, so
Yeah,
Definitely.
like it's
Don't be sleeping on the couch tonight.
no, it's true. I think as men or women, we have to approach dating as like how you approach building a career or your job. Like you have to look the ins and outs. Like, you know, you want to be in this position for this long, like this entry level position, or you want to be in management. You got to kind of looking at tiers. And and then for me, it's like you have to grow and as an individual, especially in this whole social media era where you can be kind of overconsumed by like this lofty kind of relationship that's really unrealistic. Once you remove that in your mindset, then you can be able to grow an organic relationship with your partner. I think once you have outside influences, whether it be family or social media or friends, then you can build a very organic relationship with that individual where you start to see each other in certain ways. You're not going to be perfect. You might be some quirks that we don't like, but at least you acknowledge it and not take it too personal about the person, why they're like that. Like, that you got to take them the way they are. Of course, there's always room for change, but going back to the conversation about, a woman, that's a very white American type of economic structure. If you even look at it, when Black people in the 60s were buying homes, were able to buy homes. Yes, the man was working, but even the woman was working as well. They might be going to school, university, and educating themselves. But I think we lost course. I don't know where or when, but it did exist among Black women and men where, the man can be working, but the woman can be raising a child and doing the education, getting their education, and might not even use it for anything, but they wanted to pursue the education. But I also wanted.
Go ahead, Steph, but I'm going to tell you
Well, where it switches when we all got sent off to war and men weren't around, women were forced to having to go to the work. And two, it was by design that they wanted women in the workplace because they needed that extra tax dollars.
Labor force,
right? So they needed the labor force. So a lot of these things were by
it's
design to get
it's very systematic,
to separate the man and the household
the
and
other
the
thing
family.
also, but the other thing too was the Black Power movement of the 60s and 70s. The Black Power movement made Black men public enemy number one.
Yeah.
Because we saw Black men who were intellectual and Black men who were street thugs,
murdered,
sitting in the same room, planning to take over their neighborhoods and get rid of the drugs, right? So that's what really happened. And then what happened the way to punish black men was one to incarcerate them. But the
Yeah.
ones who weren't criminals, they kept our incomes low.
Yeah.
So you got black men who are equally qualified to other races, whether they were
Yeah.
Asian or
Mhm.
white men.
They did the
We
same
were
thing to
earning,
women.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you see, the difference with women though is that most women, because they had a maternal clock, weren't necessarily aspiring to the glass ceiling. But black men, with their swag, their confidence, and their education and natural intelligence, had the ability to get to the glass ceiling, right? I mean, I worked for a bank in Canada back in the 90s, right? And I could easily become a vice president of CIBC, easily, right? But I had this little short white guy who used to annoy me every single day. And one day I snapped. And they do it deliberately because their
Yeah.
role is to keep you in this position.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
if I had gone to VP at 35 years old, I'm making, $100,000 a year. Stepmom never worked on that, had to work on that day in her life.
It's possible
Right?
now, but you
So
only allowed one.
so Tavis Smiley made a comment. I sent you guys a video a few days ago where men today are still 3/5 of a black man. They are still 3/5 of a man. So most black men today are earning 3/5 of what an average white man with the same capacity has. Think of ourselves, for example, as advisors. If we were white, our client base would be having a different income level. So our
Oh, yeah.
income by default would be higher.
Higher. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But we're dealing with the same black clients who've got basic resources. So by default, our incomes are low.
Or lower. That's true.
Our clients are 9% black,
Yeah.
right? So just much to this conversation. I mean, I think it's a very deliberate way to keep the economy and the machinery working in this part of the world. You hear lots of stories about like both of us, all of us in this room here, right? I work for ourselves because we couldn't make six figures working for somebody else.
I
I mean,
couldn't take the
get every single
dynamic
day
anymore.
work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't take it either. But I mean, if I could have found a job where I was the guy who was, sitting in the nice chair in the office, why would I go
C-suite.
and try and make my own income every single day? Why would I give
Mhm.
up, leaving work at 3 o'clock on Friday and playing golf with black guys as opposed to white guys? You know what I mean? And then, I mean, you know what I mean? But everybody around me was white. And after a while, I was always the odd guy out. And there was always these micro aggressions and the foolish comments. And it got tiring. I can't breathe in that environment. I can't do it anymore.
You guys heard
Right?
the term code switching, right?
Oh, all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never conformed to that. I feel like
Psychologically, you
I
did
feel
though.
like many of us do it, especially in the kind of the corporate culture in the industry that we're in. I come across guys who do it like they don't talk the way they talk, they talk a certain way with white people, but when it
I
comes
do it 3 times a day.
I do it too a little bit, but again,
Three
for
times
me,
a day I'm code switching.
but for me, it comes naturally because I'm Canadian. So for me, I can pull it out. It's not for me. It's not code. I don't call it code switching.
It is.
You think so?
It is.
Yeah, it
It
is
is.
code
You may
switching. I
looking
mean,
it as I got a skill set, but it's code switching.
Okay.
code switching.
I got the
Just
capability,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
code switching because
Yeah,
And it's
code
mentally
switching,
fatiguing.
if you weren't doing it, you wouldn't do it at all. Like
That's
you
true.
would be, if you have an
Yeah.
accent, you have an accent. Your vernacular would be your vernacular, no matter who you spoke to,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So we all do it because, in essence, in order for us to make that dollar, we don't want to rub people off the wrong way. Now, if you got to a certain level, then you would find no need to do it. You're gonna deal with me how I am. But we do it because, well, I do it because I haven't reached a certain level that I could say no to
Yet.
everybody, right? If I could say no to everybody and give you the finger, then I'm not gonna code switch. I'd be getting on the call like, yo,
that's
what's
so
up?
tiring. And that is so tiring. That's mentally fatiguing.
But do you do that, Dad? Because I've been in the office with you, and I don't really necessarily see that.
Nah, I never could. I'm a Guyanese guy.
Yeah.
I never became. I never became nothing other than Guyanese. So
Yeah.
I
But
speak
don't you
Guyanese.
do it a little bit though, Ray? Don't
You
you
think
do
I
it
do?
like, because the way that you're sitting in that chair right now with that suit on it, that is your persona that you have created for a certain type of environment. You said when I'm talking business or I'm going to be present, I'm going to be this person.
Good. Okay.
But I became
And
this first
then-
thing guy. I became this first thing guy.
Right.
I
But it's
enhanced it.
persona.
I enhanced it in Canada. But
Okay. So who are you
my
when you're not
grandfather
this
always
person?
dressed. I don't know, Steph. I don't know. Steph can answer that question. I can answer that.
Who are you when you're not this person?
What do you mean? Okay, so this person right now,
Yeah.
Like
who
this
is
person?
your dad when
Linen.
he's not this person?
I think this is duality now. Like I think we're not now. I think we're going beyond code switching. So this is duality of people. Like this part is probably a 1/5 of me. Like who I am in the office is not who I am when I
No, you
at
tell
my
me who I
home.
am. Who I am, Steph. Who I
Oh
am.
yeah, I know, but I'm getting to like
Okay.
because I think we're getting caught off topic of code switching now. I think so.
So
Like
you think code switching is only pertaining to white people and how we speak and how we relate to white
yeah,
people?
of course.
Because I know I
Actually, that's
have.
not. That's not true. That's not true. But here's what I do. So I had a meeting, and this is confidential.
I'm
Guys.
sorry, I gotta
can-
go get my girls at 12.
Oh,
Okay.
The
All
roles
right.
of a father.
Okay. So
Yeah.
It was so nice meeting you.
So
Thank you very much for your feedback,
I
Pam.
two comments before we go. I want me to comment. So I had a meeting last week, become a board member of a large board in Canada, in America. And I dressed a certain way. Because when I walked into the room, immediately they're gonna write. And people come and say, oh, I like your shoes. I went to a mechanic of my car 2 days ago. I'm new to Jacksonville. And I could have gone in a pair of shorts or track pants and a like that. But I walked in there well dressed because I think it was important for me to make that first impression that I'm going to be one of your best customers. So I think that's a different kind of code switching.
We all do it. I don't care what anybody says. We all do it. Whether it be
Anyway,
white,
Andrew,
black, Chinese,
you gotta run.
we all do it.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. We all
Thanks
do
for your insight. I'm happy to see you.
it.
All right. This one is what
Bye.
we're going to be posting. This little segment here. This is what we're going to be putting out there in social.
Okay. All right. I love it. All right. Take care.
All right,
Love you
sounds good.
guys.
All right,
All right,
see
there's
you.
that.
All right.
All right, see
See you,
that. See you,
Andrew.
Andrew.
All right.
Have a great day, everyone.